Last May, the world watched and celebrated as Nelson Mandela was sworn in as the first black president of South Africa.
I, Nelson Mandela, do hereby swear to be faithful to the Republic of South Africa.
You may not have realized that the American Postal Workers Union, along with other unions, played a role in bringing about the first free and fair all-race elections in South Africa's history. APWU has been determined to help South Africans reform their country, opposing apartheid, and providing aid to the black trade unions. In 1991, APWU President Mo Billa and other APWU leaders met with Johnny Longwani, President of South Africa's Post and Telecommunications Workers Association, PATWA. And Mr. Billa met with Nelson Mandela himself, shortly after Mandela was released from 27 years in prison. Working through its African American Labor Center, AALC, the AFL-CIO has consistently worked for justice in South Africa with APWU's full support. And it was the South African labor movement which provided the catalyst for the remarkable and historic change the world has witnessed.
The trade union movement in South Africa has been crucial to the political transition. In fact, without the trade union movement, you wouldn't be here today. And I don't think it would be an exaggeration to say that next to solidarity, no other trade union movement has played such a crucial role in the political transformation of a country.
Once it was learned that free elections would be coming, an early order of business was to help with voter education. After all, most people in the country had never voted before.
How many times are you going to vote on voting day?
There will be 2 papers where you can vote, but I don't know how to separate them, quite. But there will be 2 papers.
But you're prepared to go vote for your government now? Yes. All of you, let me see how many are prepared to go vote. All of you, get a picture of that. Get a picture of that.
This spring, when the South African labor movement asked for international observers to come and witness the voting, President Billa invited 5 APWU national officers and 1 special assistant to go.
One of the reasons that I chose to volunteer as a young teenager growing up in Montgomery, Alabama, I had a chance to witness the civil rights movement in Montgomery as a teenager, not understanding what I was witnessing at the time. And now I have a chance to participate in something historic as an adult when I understand exactly why I'm here and what I'm to be looking for.
Here it was called apartheid. In the United States it was called Jim Crow. It was the same thing. And there we did what we had to do trying to resolve those issues. And hopefully here the same issues can be resolved in a peaceful manner.
To see an election that is, for the first time, all people from all races participating is important to postal workers because we care about people all over the world. And we want to make sure that there is no discrimination.
It's a historical moment. And at times I have to pinch myself to believe that I'm here. I'm very proud of the American Postal Workers Union for giving me this opportunity to see history in the making.
I'm an activist in the union. I think that it's important for me to come over here to show to our union brothers this is here that we in America care about their concerns.
I mean, we had some apprehension while coming
In South Africa, the weeks prior to the voting were filled with violence from several different sources. The worst situation arose from the fact that Chief Buthelezi of the Zulus was boycotting the election, and acts of violence were being committed against election workers and others.
We had Bophuthatswana was a holdout. The far right wing, the Afrikaner Folks Front, was a holdout. The Inkatha Freedom Party. All of these parties did not just decline to participate in the process. They committed themselves to obstructing and disrupting the process.
When they had young guys out trying to pass out voter education leaflets, and they caught them on the side of the road, whoever they may be, and tied his hands and feet and cut his hands and feet off and left him there on the road to bleed.
This week has been a really tense and difficult week. There were planned marches, there were all sorts of things going on here, and the whole center part of the city was full of razor wire and tanks and everything else.
Just 2 days before the APWU delegation left for South Africa, the Inkatha Freedom Party agreed to participate in the elections.
After the Inkatha Party became a part of the political process, I think tensions have eased quite a bit, and I think everybody's relaxed and looking forward to the elections next week.
APWU's counterpart union, PATWA, is a key part of the coalition of South African trade unions, COSATU, the largest labor group in that nation. Both groups were instrumental in the struggle to achieve free, all-race elections. The APWU contingent sat down with PATWA leaders to talk about nuts and bolts issues.
President Biller extends his greetings to you, and obviously he couldn't be here for this long period of time. But at this time, I'd like to extend an invitation to one of your officials to come to Detroit to our national convention in August. And President Biller made sure that we would extend the invitation to you, and we so do that now.
We obviously thank you not only as Potter. We thank you on behalf of all South Africans. And
as blacks in Africa, you know, what kinds of problems do you all have as it relates to working for the postal service, for the post office?
Looking into South Africa as it is, you'll find that now the majority of the laborers, you know, are Africans within both companies. But now those that are holding top positions or skilled positions, you know, mostly are whites.
Whenever those kind of proposals, you know, comes forward of having to share skills with the black workers, they used to call it the swart gevaar. The swart gevaar, that is the black danger. The black danger, yeah, or the black terror. So the black terror, what it means is that they're actually threatened that their skills will be taken up by blacks.
We also still have the same problems with training and availability of training and the repression of minorities. Malcolm happens to be one of 12% of minorities in electronics technician. Yet in our janitorial services, we have about 52% minorities represented.
How many members do you represent? And out of those members, what percentage are women?
Currently, we are at the membership of 24,000. Until 1990, there were only 2 women, African women, who were in any position higher than a cleaner.
The place of a woman is no longer in the kitchen, but her place is in the struggle too.
The rally is wonderful. It's been great. The enthusiasm the people have expressed here on behalf of their candidate and on behalf of the party has just been overwhelming. It's been a great experience.
As an election observer, it's part of our responsibility to observe all the political activities that's going on, and this is just one of those activities that we'll be observing while we're here.
We are satisfied with a democratic majority government, even if it is all African, a mixed one, or even if it is all white, as long as it is elected through the democratic process, we will be satisfied with that.
Lest the delegation get too carried away with all the peace, love, and understanding, a huge bomb, detonated by white, right-wing extremists on the eve of the election, was close enough to their Johannesburg hotel to be clearly heard and felt.
It's just, I heard a big explosion, like boom, went off real loud, yeah.
I guess everybody was anticipating or hoping that while we were here, there would be no problems or anything of that nature. And so that loud noise went off, everybody was kind of like, what the hell is that?
9 South Africans were killed and many more injured, but none of the delegation asked to go home. Just before the 3 days of actual voting began, the APWU delegation spread out to all corners of the country. The first step was to meet with local union counterparts.
I was tickled to death to find out I was coming, and I just want to let you brothers and sisters know that we care and that we're here to support you.
I'm sure that we all understood when we came here that the potential of danger existed. But let me assure you for myself and for the rest of us too, we're going to do what we got to do. And if they got to go to a polling station that's a little shaky, we just go there and give a little prayer and keep getting up. But if it's dangerous or not dangerous, we didn't come here to pick out and choose where you want to go. We got a job to do, we're going to do it. So you pick the station out, secure us as best you can, and we go in there. At least I am anyway.
On the eve of the elections, even before the first votes were cast, the delegation observed huge lines of people.
They're here to get identification badge so they have the right to vote.
The first day of voting was devoted to people with special problems.
We started off Tuesday, which is a special day of voting in South Africa. It allows the elderly, the infirmed, people like that to come out and vote, the blind, people in prisons. And so we got to go out and observe the election process in those areas.
I saw a process that even for South Africa, I thought I would never see, because even though we vote in the United States, our prisoners are allowed to vote. So it's, aside from the fact that voting has become a historical event in South Africa, the mere fact that it took place in a prison still kind of overwhelms me. The idea to go into a prison and actually see prisoners come in and get a chance to exercise the right to vote.
There was women, and old men there that could hardly walk, that stood in a line for 8 hours, or what they call standing on queue for 8 hours so that they can vote. And through the good offices of the American Postal Workers Union, we are here to observe this first free election in South Africa.
This particular lady was about 75, 80 years old, and she had trouble seeing. She unfolded her ballot, and as the IEC personnel would speak to her in her home language, she would address all her questions to me because she felt comfortable with my face. And she told me who she wanted to vote for. And she asked me to mark her ballot for her. So I helped her by placing my hand on top of hers as she marked her X. When she folded up her ballot and left the voting area, she jumped in the air and said, "I did it myself, I did it myself." And she was so proud of herself. Tears just flowed down my eyes.
A little gentleman, must have been about 65 or 70 years old, that literally carried his wife in his arms, stood out there in the line, a little lady, could not walk, carried her through the line as she voted at each station, and took her to the door and laid her on a blanket, and then he turned and went back and voted himself.
It was very exciting. The people are very dignified in their approach to the elections, very respectful. I thought it was just a great day in South Africa as well as the world.
Did you sleep last night?
No. I waited for this moment for a long time. I couldn't sleep. I waited for the whole night yesterday. You can look even in my eyes so that I didn't sleep.
Observers were charged with carefully monitoring all activities at the voting stations to ensure that proper procedures were being followed. While they weren't supposed to intervene directly if a problem occurred, they were to make a full report of each visit, noting any irregularities.
With my fellow labor brothers and sisters, we've been observing these elections to make sure that they were fair and free, and that there was no intimidation, there were no politicking in front of the zones. We actually walked into the voting stations to make sure everybody had a chance to cast their ballot for the party of their choice, that it was done without intimidation or coercion, that it was actually placed into a ballot box. The ballot boxes were sealed.
But it's amazing that the IEC in this country has pulled off a voting process that's just almost unbelievable for the first time that people have had to vote. I would have to say that they did a great job.
These credentials carry weight over here. The people look to us as international observers to be sure that the election is free and fair. And I can assure you that this election is free and it is fair.
More random bombs continue to plague the election process throughout South Africa, with one potential scare to an APWU member.
We met in the office building here where COSATU has an office. We were told that it might be a good idea if we moved to some other meeting place, so we arranged to meet in a hotel here in Pretoria. And by the time we got to the hotel in Pretoria, we found out that there had actually been a bomb scare in the building that we were meeting in, and that the bomb had actually been found and defused. I think everybody who came on this trip expected there would be some danger involved, but it didn't seem to shake anybody at all. Everybody sort of handled it matter-of-factly and got our assignments for the next day and moved out and went to work.
After the 3 days of voting, it was the APWU delegation's responsibility to observe the vote counting process.
They're inside opening up the ballot boxes now, beginning to count the ballots, not counting at this point, but opening up the ballot boxes, turning them over, checking that the seal is on them.
Right now they're setting aside the ballots in groups of 20 and then binding them out by 100.
Paper ballots came in a book and they were numbered. And so depending on the number of books that were used, the presiding official should be able to determine how many ballots should have from his voting station.
As far as free and fair is concerned, it was a free and fair election.
People have just walked up to me, shook my hand, said thank you very much for being here, for making sure we have a free and fair election. And they're just very enthused about the work of the AFL-CIO and the American Postal Workers Union.
Voting took place among all social and economic segments of society, from the very wealthy to the most economically depressed. The APWU delegation, however, spent most of its time in the so-called informal settlements of makeshift shacks populated mostly by blacks.
I saw very nice homes in some areas, and then in certain areas the homes were like huts, and the people were wrapped in blankets without clothing. Obvious that area had a high unemployment, and with no jobs and no education, it was very sad.
As the whole world knows, the free elections in South Africa resulted in the victory of the formerly outlawed ANC, with its leader, Nelson Mandela, to serve as president.
I stand before you filled with deep pride and joy. Pride in the ordinary, humble people of this country. You have shown such a calm, patient determination to reclaim this country as your own, and joy that we can loudly proclaim from the rooftops, free at last.
I know for a fact that my brothers and sisters in the American Postal Workers Union are absolutely proud that there was 6 of us out of the American Postal Workers Union that were not afraid. And we came here to represent them in this first free election of the South African people.
Americans people have contributed mainly throughout our struggle. And we want to thank you for that. Obviously, the other part of the thanking will be done on the 10th, possibly, by our president, Comrade Nelson Mandela. It's obvious that he's going to be president.
Viva! Viva! Viva Mandela!
Viva!
Yes.
Thank you for caring. Thank you for making it your business to have an interest in liberation and democracy in South Africa. You could have looked another way. You could have said, it's got nothing to do with us. Let's share the celebration of this victory.
We've got a baby that we need to see, to bring it up.
Yeah.
Your help and your efforts, we won't forget it.
You don't know how much this did for us coming over and being a part of this struggle. And if there's any way that we as American Postal Workers Union members of the United States can be of any assistance to you, feel free to contact. You got our cards, write us. Let's keep in communication because we are brothers across the world.
The South African people may be new to democracy, but they know, as should we, that the real work of building a just and free society in South Africa has just begun.
We are rolling up our sleeves to begin tackling the problems our country faces. We ask you all to join us. Go back to your jobs in the morning. Let's get South Africa working. For we must, together and without delay, begin to build a better life for all South Africans. This means creating jobs, building houses, providing education, and bringing peace and security for all.